Folks, you know I always have the heavy hitters on NoPixAfterDark podcast. And I'm excited for this episode. So I'm a huge fan of this person. From the Baltimore Sun days all the way to the Baltimore Banner days now. And I had a chance to meet her at AFRAM 2 years ago. And I was kind of nervous, oh, this is a great reporter. I can't believe I'm talking with her. And I'm so excited to have her on the show today. Ms. Pamela Wood will be the next voice you hear on NoPixAfterDark podcast.
We made a pledge to do what's best for the health of our communities, and we continue to deliver on it every day for every one of our members. With access to a network of over 1 million providers, rewards for living healthy, and more care options than ever, we are Care First Blue Cross Blue Shield, and we are changing healthcare for all that we serve. At Care First, it's not just our name, it's our promise.
Welcome to the NoPixAfterDark podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Dante. Miss Pamela Wood, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here on NoPixAfterDark.
Thank you so much for your time. You are busy. When I ran and caught you, you were about to do a breaking story right there. I was like, let her do her thing. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. I love talking about the news business.
Yeah, you're big time. I always say you're big time, from Baltimore Sun to the Banner. You're doing so many great things out here. And like I said, I was so excited to meet you during the gubernatorial race.
Yeah,
that's right. When we met, because I was like, yeah, I had my little booth, my little podcast area. And I was starting to come on the scene at that point. People were like, who is this guy? Who is this guy getting all these candidates to come talk with him? And people were like, oh. And then I saw you at Mako and a couple other things of that nature. But tell people a little bit about how long have you been in the business for?
Yeah, so I've been in the business my entire adult life, and I actually started doing journalism when I was in high school. Wow. So I'm one of those rare people who I knew what I wanted to do when I was young, and then I've been lucky enough that I've been able to make it a career. So going on as a professional 23 years now. I graduated in 2000, so long time.
Nice. You went to the University of Maryland?
I sure did. I'm a Terp.
That was your championship year, right? Or
right after 2002.
All right. So you were right after the left. Okay, right after you left, you won a championship. I remember it was during that time period.
Yeah, it was all those players: Juan Dixon, Lonnie Baxter. Yeah, loved it. It was big. I joke that everybody goes to Maryland minors in basketball.
I like that. Are you originally from Maryland?
Since I was 10, my family moved here when I was 10 to Howard County. So,
okay.
Not quite lifelong, but most of my life here.
Where'd you guys live before?
Upstate New York, actually.
Oh, upstate. Okay, all right.
Yeah, so you went to Syracuse,
yes,
right?
I did. I did go to Syracuse.
I was super close to going to Syracuse because I thought about going back.
Syracuse.
Yeah, it was right down to Syracuse and Maryland at the end, and Maryland won out.
It happens. It happens.
Growing up there, I grew up in a little town north of Syracuse. The height of child fashion was getting a Syracuse sweatshirt.
I believe it.
Yes, that was the big deal when you got a new Syracuse sweatshirt to wear around. So
I mean, I used to have a starter Syracuse hoodie, so I know about.
There you go.
That was back in the day, but that's so small world. Yeah. So I don't know if you knew this. I went to high school in Syracuse also.
Oh, okay.
So I was to high school, and then I ended up it was either Syracuse or a Foggy Bottom GW. And I was like, there's no campus here. I want sports. I want other things where it's like a community. I didn't really want a city, and that's why I went to Syracuse.
Well, that's what I wanted. I wanted a big school with a journalism program and, the big sports and activities. I wanted to go to football and basketball games and all that.
We had Newhouse. Come on. We had Newhouse. Newhouse is one of the best communication schools in the nation.
Like I said, it was close. It was super close. And I have lots of colleagues and people I've met over the years who are Syracuse alums.
I got it. So when you guys moved down here in Howard County, was there something in your family that was a writer, somebody who you looked up to that, or like you said you wrote when you were younger? Was somebody that you were like, I like what they do, that would you model after?
Yeah, so my parents were big readers generally, and they also followed the news religiously. Everywhere we lived, up in New York, down here, always subscribed to the paper. We read the Baltimore Sun every day. The Columbia Flyer every Thursday came, and on the weekends we would get the Washington Post. And I swear this is real, that we would go to church on Sunday, get the donuts, come home, spread out in the living room and dining room, and everybody take their sections of the newspaper. And so we were just newspaper readers. My parents watched the TV news every night, the evening news. And then when I was in 6th grade at Wildlife Middle School, we did a unit in one of our language arts classes on newspapers, and we had to make our own little newspaper in class, the who, what, when, where, how, and why. And I thought, oh, this is super cool. I was just smitten, and I thought it was really cool, and I couldn't wait to get to the chance to go to high school and then work on the student newspaper. So
that's cool.
It was really just sort of my background from my family being news people, being news consumers, and then a teacher. Mrs. Dodson was her name at Wildlife Middle School.
I love that. I love telling. Thank you for sharing that story with us. That's really cool how it all began. And then high school, you guys had a newspaper in high school?
We did. It was called. I went to Howard High School.
Okay.
Because everybody's got to know where you went to high school.
That's the Maryland thing.
Yeah. Howard High School in Ellicott City, and our newspaper was called The Lion's Tail. Tale. We thought we were so clever. But, when I finally got in the newspaper, the first edition that came out, got them from the printer. We went around the classrooms and passed them out. And seeing people, my classmates, my friends, just devour the paper. First, they were just looking to see if they were in it. But it was such a rush, such a high. I was like, oh man, this is definitely for me. Yeah.
So hold that thought. So I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to bring that little feeling to now. But we'll go back to we'll get to it. So you did all that. You enjoyed it. That sounds cool because I remember when I won Best of Baltimore for Baltimore Sun, it meant more to me than Baltimore Magazine. The reason why, and people don't get it, they're like, when I grew up, I moved all around when I was younger, and I used to come back to Baltimore every summer. And I worked at my family's convenience store. Mm-hmm. My uncle used to read the paper every day.
Nice.
My grandmother read the paper every day. And I just remember growing up, everybody read the paper. It was the Baltimore Sun from front to back. And when I won that award, I was like, this means a lot because these are people, this is what I grew up on.
Yeah, your family. It was important your family.
Magazine wasn't around. Baltimore Magazine wasn't around. It wasn't what we read. It was the newspaper. So, and now just that feel of that newspaper. And then you had the people, the delivering, try to be, the delivery guy.
Yeah.
And remember, they had delivery boys back in the day or girls delivering. And I just remember people throwing it out there and driving by. That stuff is just great memories.
Yeah.
So that's why it was really important for me when I was like, this is really important for Baltimore Sun, a little tangent. But you do your thing. You're like, I'm going to Maryland. Mm-hmm. You didn't go to Cuse. It's all good. Did you ever want to be in TV, or did you always just want to be a journalist? Like, where's that line where you're like, do you want to be a TV person or personality, or do you just want to be a writer?
I was always drawn to writing, writing part of it. Which is really funny because as the business has changed and as my career has grown, I had to pick up some photography skills out of necessity. Now, I'm not as good as the pro photographers, but I can shoot a little. I did a little podcasting for a while when I was at the Sun. I do radio hits. I go on TV now. We have a partnership with WJZ, and the Baltimore Banner is on every weekday at 9:30, and I go on that. And I moderate debates, and I'm doing all of these out front things that, college student Pamela Wood would have poo-pooed all that and said, no, I'm a writer. But we've moved into this way in journalism that it's very multifaceted, and you have to pick up these different skills, to stay alive in this business, frankly. And it turns out I enjoy it. Yeah,
you do a great job in debate. You did really good. I think you're one of the best people to do something like that. Like, because you have the pulse and to be at the state of Maryland. I really believe. Like, if I have to find any news, I go to your Twitter page.
All right, awesome.
I go right away. I'm a big fan, so I'm always like, if she isn't reported, it's not true yet. I don't believe it's out unless you hear something through the grapevine. But again, if you don't put it out there, I don't think it's happening. So kudos to you and your credibility, because I think in news and whatnot, it's about being credible and authentic and telling the news, not telling a sensational story, but the news for me. And just like, all right, this is what's going on. Okay, great. I like to hear this. Understand again. Walk away with your own opinion. Sometimes. Yeah,
well, I think you hit on an important point. Credibility is important, and like, you have credibility because people sense your passion for Baltimore and your genuine interest in hearing about interesting things people are doing, and that draws people in, and people they're going to get something good. Same thing at the Banner or in any reporter. You have to be real, and you have to build that trust and gain that trust from your readers or your viewers that they know you're giving them the real deal as best you know it. And I speak every year to a journalism ethics class at Towson University about an old friend of mine teaches there, and I talk a lot about building that credibility, and because otherwise people don't know like whether to trust you or not, and how important that trust is in journalism.
I will tell you, I've learned a lot from doing this the last couple of years, and on top of the last presidency of all the news and everything, and that credibility is such an important thing now because people don't really know. They want you to help them educate. You're basically your educator. And you're walking on the path of what's going on. So kudos to you and what you got going on. So what was your first job out of college? Where did you first start off?
I first started at the Maryland Gazette newspaper, which it still exists. It's a little tiny paper in northern Anne Arundel County. It comes out in print twice a week. It's part of the Capital Gazette. It's the little sister paper to the Capital in Annapolis, where a couple years later I jumped there. And then on to the Sun and the Banner. But it was really great. We had this tiny office in Glen Burnie, in like old Glen Burnie. If anybody's been to the Glen Burnie Carnival, it's right down the street from there. And people would literally just walk in the door and just walk right in the newsroom and have tips. And sometimes they were great. Sometimes they were crazy, or people come in and pay their bill for their subscription. And it was a really great place to do just true community news, writing about a church is going to expand and, build an expansion, or there's a housing development and people are fighting, a farm's going to turn into a housing development and people are fighting it and all that kind of stuff, we don't have enough of that anymore. No. But it was a great schooling in how to become a grown-up reporter and to learn about the community.
Who would you say that really helped you along the way to where you are right now? Is there somebody that's a mentor out there? Somebody who said, hey, let me take you under my wings and show you a couple things. Is there anybody out there?
Yeah, my first editor is a gentleman named Bob Mosier. He's actually the communications director now for Anne Arundel County Public Schools. So if anybody listening has like kids, he's the one who like does the announcements at schools canceled. Oh. He does a lot more, but they're always waiting for the phone call from Bob to find out if school's canceled. But he was my first editor and really helped me transition from being a student reporter, at this, I worked at the University of Maryland Diamondback, and into being a professional reporter and what it takes to be doing this, 40 hours a week, and, really helped me a lot with that transition and, grow into a professional newspaper for sure. And then, honestly, along the way, I have really been fortunate to work alongside a ton of really talented journalists, and we learn from each other a lot, which is, really great.
I love hearing that. And you went from the Capital Gazette to Baltimore Sun, and then you left the Baltimore Sun and went to the Banner.
Yep, that's right.
And folks, we're going to leave right there. We'll be right back with these messages. We're going to talk about the Baltimore Banner. We're going to talk about what's going on with the Baltimore Banner, what she's covering, and tell us, maybe she might get some secrets about what's going on with this race coming up in the Congress and whatnot. We'll be right back with these messages.
When you give to United Way, your gift could be the first spark of something bigger. It can help someone find, interview for, and get hired for a job, and provide follow-up services for success. It can break down educational barriers and give that extra help to a struggling student with in-school support programs. Give today. Spark something bigger.
Are you or someone you love in need of mental health support? For All Seasons is now offering same-day therapy appointments with no wait list. Through the For All Seasons Open Access program, you can walk in for mental health services and begin therapy in the same visit. For All Seasons accepts all insurances and provides financial assistance if you need it. For therapy, psychiatry, or victim support, we have appointments available today. Call For All Seasons 410-822-1018.
And folks, we are back with Ms. Pamela Wood. How are you?
I'm doing great.
This is an amazing episode. I'm learning so much about you. I'm getting really giddy. Like, this is really cool. Learn so many great things about you. So, left off, Baltimore Banner. What is your job over there right now?
So at the Baltimore Banner, I am a state house, state government, and politics reporter, which means I split my time between Baltimore and Annapolis, and my life is dictated by the governor, the General Assembly, and whatever they're doing to try and make Maryland a better place, or whether they're doing it right or screwing it up. That's what I do. And I do a little bit of other politics reporting, some on our congressional delegation, help out in the city or other places as needed, but it's mostly state government.
So this episode will be out in January. So on purpose, because session.
Yep.
It's the second session of the governor. I was at a conference this past year in summer in Mako. I saw you there. And he said that it's going to be a little bit tighter this year, financial-wise. Financial, fiscal, and whatnot. And there's a lot of things on the agenda coming up. What things are you thinking that's going to come up what are you looking forward to in this session that's coming up?
Yeah, I'm excited for the session. I always start out excited, then I get exhausted about halfway through. So yeah, January to April, 90 days. They're all in Annapolis. Governor Westmore, he's in his second year. The first year it's tough to do a lot because you're just coming in, you're appointing your people, you're getting going. He's been in office a year now, so I'm really interested to find out what his priorities are going to be. As you mentioned, a big one is going to be the state budget. There's not quite enough money there to cover all the expenses. It's not catastrophic yet, but they're going to have to make some tough choices. And in particular, transportation is going to face some cuts, or maybe they're going to have to raise some money for all the highway projects, the red line, the DC metro system. That's an area where there's going to be a lot of financial discussion. And then we're also going to see lots of policy issues, crime involving young people, whether victims or perpetrators. That is a big thing. Everybody is talking about it. We're yet to see what's going to shake out. We also have, environmental things. Can we, meet the targets for clean energy? And who knows? There's always some surprise every year. There's something that you didn't expect that is going to end up being a big thing. So
now, do you this is a question. I know probably one. Do you sleep there overnight? Do you stay there all because every time I see your report, you're like, I'm here again, or I never left, but I feel like people don't leave for that 9 days. It's straight Monday through Friday, boom, boom, boom. Tell us, give us a little peek behind the scenes during session. What happens? Do you pretty much put a cot out there? How do you guys do it?
I wish. Sometimes it seems like that. And I'm fortunate. I actually live in between Baltimore and Annapolis, which makes my life easy. I'm not trekking, because it is a trek to Annapolis from Baltimore every day.
Yes.
And a lot of people do it. I live in between, which is lucky. It's long days, Monday through Friday. They're having their committee hearings. They're having, debates on the floor, we call it, which is when the whole chamber is together, the whole House or the whole Senate in the chamber. They have floor debates. There's press conferences. There's rallies from all the advocates, and you're just going from one thing to another, to another, to another. And I work very closely. I have a partner down there, Brenda Wintrode. We'll hopefully, by the time this airs, have a third reporter. So I sort of play traffic cop a little bit and try and figure out where we can best deploy our resources. There's only so many of us and so many hours in the day. What's going to be the most important to people in the Baltimore region? What do they need to know about the most, and how do we focus? But it's long. There's work on the weekends. Sometimes I go in on Saturdays. Every Sunday night, I spend a couple hours. I just sit at my laptop and I catch up on my emails. I look at all of the events coming in the week ahead, and I start to rough out a proposal for what we're going to do for the week. So it's 90 days where I'm not the best, spouse or friend or daughter, but it's a lot of work. But it's really fascinating to be that close to power and the important decisions being made, and to be there to be the eyes and ears of regular folks who are, you're too busy. You don't have time to do this. Everybody has work and school and family. So I feel like I'm the eyes and ears for people down there. I
love that, because I went down for the first time last year for Sonny died. And I was blown,
that's a crazy day.
Blown away. And I actually did a live show down there. And people were like, we're happy you're here because we want to talk. I was like, and I wasn't ready for the whole. I had never been to Sonny died. Never been. And I was like, let's check it out. And I'm definitely going back this year. and I'm actually going to opening day. I didn't go opening day last year, and everybody's like, "Why aren't you here?" And I was like, I just because my podcast, I step a little bit into but I don't really do politics. Like I put one foot in, because I know I don't want to be pigeonholed in that. Like you're doing this, you're doing this. I don't want to be left, right, up, down. I just want to be neutral and say, all right, this is what it is. And I try to do a little bit, but I don't try to do too much.
The opening day is fun because it's a little bit like the first day of school, where everybody was off at summer camp or what were you, their summer job or whatever, and they're all coming back together, and they have this fresh optimism for like, we're really gonna solve our problems, or we're gonna have our voice heard, and there's a lot of optimism and excitement, and all the county execs come down, and the attorney general and the comptroller, everybody's there, and not much business happens on the first day.
Right.
Which sine die, the last day of session is the opposite. Everybody comes down. Instead of being optimistic, they're all tired, but they do a lot of work on the last day.
They do, because I remember I had one person that came and did an interview and had to go back on the floor to vote. And they're like, Aaron, all I have is 30 minutes. Like, okay, let's get it in, get it out. So it was very interesting. And the reason why I'm going down there, because I want people to be like a little sneak peek of video of like, this is who, and they see it and they're like, interesting. I didn't know this side of things. And I come at it as a regular person, just coming down there, just checking out, hanging out, and give people an advantage point. I'm like, oh, this is different. Oh, that's where they are. And so that's why I'm going down there this year, just to give a sneak peek behind the curtain of what's going on in Annapolis, because everybody wants to know.
Right. $60 billion of tax dollars they're spending every year in our name. Like, how are they spending it? How are they making these decisions on funding our schools and funding our roads? And, again, are we going to go tougher on crime? Or are we going to go smarter on crime? It's so important. And it's this weird little world down there. It is. It's very interesting.
How many governors have you worked with since you've been working with just in state politics?
Yeah, so I came on full-time doing State House reporting in the second term for Larry Hogan. Okay. But I was part-time before that. I would do session only, or at one point I was an environment reporter, so I would only do the environmental stories. Okay. So I dealt a fair amount with Governor O'Malley and a little bit with Governor Ehrlich. But not a ton. I was still kind of mostly a community reporter then.
So would you say distinguishes everybody different from everybody, like their cabinets? Were they always receptive of you coming in and saying, "Hey, what's up?" Or were they kind of like, we don't really want to talk, no comment today? Or I always wondered what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, so whenever you're covering an executive, whether it's a governor, county executive, which I've covered county executives before, or mayors, as a reporter, you really have to establish a rapport, not just with the executive themselves, the governor or the mayor, but with their staff, with their team, their comms team. But it also helps to know their chief of staff or the other advisors, because the governor may think you're great, but if you have a terrible relationship with the communication staff, they're not going to help you as much. I mean, I found everybody to be really professional. I don't always get what I want, but I always ask for, the sun, the moon, and the stars, I ask, hey, can I get an hour sit down with the Governor Moore? And, maybe I get 15 minutes, but, you ask for everything. I think the mark of a good administration and good communications team is how they are, not just when the news is good for them, but when the news is bad for them. And I'll say, for example, under Governor Hogan, one of my big stories was about this fellow, Roy McGrath, who was his chief of staff. Long story short, he had gotten negotiated himself this big payout from when he transferred from another state agency to become the chief of staff, and the whole thing blew up. He kind of got forced out of his job. He eventually got charged criminally and then was shot and killed when he was on the run after skipping trial. So anyway, that's a long story. But when this all broke and there were calls for him to resign and all this, Governor Hogan's team, this was really bad for them. But they were absolutely still professional. They answered my calls. They helped me where they could, even though they were in sort of crisis management mode, to try to handle it as best they could. They were still helpful the whole way through.
Do you think it was hard to be a reporter during COVID and reporting things that was going on in the State House? I know I was probably during that time, because I always remember I always call it the circus when Hogan was like, oh, we have all this stuff coming from different country for all these. and none of it worked.
Yeah.
And so, like,
That was a tough one.
When I saw that, I was like, really? But a lot of people didn't really know, but they were like, he got us all this stuff, and a lot of people were like, well, did you hear he didn't really?
It didn't work. Yeah.
How is that? Was that pretty tough for you as a reporter during COVID because you really couldn't do things like you normally had to do? You had to do, it was definitely to navigate.
One thing that, and I don't want to sound like a cheerleader for the Hogan administration or anybody else,
No,
but
good.
one thing they were good at is when they were shutting things down or opening things up, or masks or no masks, they were very good at communicating about that. Making sure that the reporters had the tools to get the message out, and they were very clear in their communications. So that part of it was good. Something like the South Korean tests, which they got these tests, and look, that was creative problem solving. But the problem was, because tests were hard to find, people forget what it was like in those early days in 2020. But yeah, they didn't work. They had to spend more money to replace them with ones that did work, and they did not answer questions. And all of us reporters were on this story, and we're getting a little piece here, a little piece there. The Post would get something, Jane Miller would get something, I would get something, and it was hard because we are in our houses. You can't like run somebody down in the hallway, or you're not seeing people, or even just when you're on the phone talking to like a new person or trying to convince somebody to talk to you, they don't know who you are.
Right.
When you can meet somebody in person, you can establish that connection and a little trust. If you've just had even just a hallway conversation, or you had a cup of coffee with somebody, that is something I like to do with people, because then they say, oh, she's a nice person. And you just feel more familiar. Somebody doesn't know to trust you when you're just like a black hole on the other end of the phone line. And that was hard. That was like pulling teeth to kind of drag out what really happened. And to this day, I'm not sure why they didn't make the choice to say, hey, we tried, it didn't work.
Move on.
We did the best we could. That's an enduring mystery, I guess, of that administration.
That was definitely different.
COVID was tough as a reporter, though.
That's what I was thinking leading to. Now, what about as far as, I saw you do something really huge. I was about a couple of months ago. You had the Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Peter Buttigieg.
Oh, gosh.
How was that? Were you nervous about that? That was like a really big interview. I mean, walk us through that. How was that for you?
Well, so it was, I don't usually get nervous to go on stage.
Okay.
I don't usually get nervous to do interviews, but I was a little out of my depth because I don't cover federal transportation policy.
Okay.
I'm not an expert. I did a lot of research. I had more questions than I needed. I watched a lot of interviews. And one thing I also knew is that Secretary Buttigieg is very smart, and he's very quick on his feet, and he is not afraid of hostile questioning. Like, he's a Democrat, obviously, in the Biden administration. He goes on Fox News and he goes toe to toe. That is not friendly media for the Biden administration. So I thought, this guy's really smart, like, way smarter than me. But he was very nice. I got to meet him in the green room beforehand, and very professional. And then we go out on stage, and then all hell breaks loose.
I saw that.
So we got interrupted by climate change protesters who bought tickets to the event. This was an event called Impact Maryland that the Baltimore Banner sponsored. It was at the Meyerhoff, which was, I have to say, it was very cool to be on stage at the Meyerhoff.
Right.
After being there to see the BSO so many times, to be on stage was very cool. Wasn't so cool when I couldn't see what was happening because it was a little dark until they got in front of us, but they're chanting and yelling, "Stop Petro Pete," and they had a banner, and they actually got up on the stage, and in the moment, I just was actually very calm, and I knew, okay, well, this guy's a military veteran, he's very smart, he can handle hostile situations, so I thought, okay, well, we're gonna go with this, and maybe we can kind of quiet them down by having him address what they're talking about. And they were opposed to some pipeline proposal that I didn't even know anything about, frankly. And I asked the secretary to address it, and we went back and forth a couple times, but then he's answering, and he's not giving them the answers that they want.
Of course not.
And then they start shouting over him while he's still talking. So we got, his Secret Service came right up on stage, right around us, his agents. And then finally some of our organizers told us, all right, we just got to cut it off. So we went off stage. And the secretary goes, and his Secret Service detail goes behind him, and then I'm behind him. And then I realized right behind me is not Buttigieg people or Banner people, but the protesters were trying to crowd up. So I actually had to push some of them off of me until we could get the door closed. And then it took security a while. And I think police came to get them out eventually. They turned the lights down, the audience cleared and everything. And so here's the thing. After this, I don't remember how long it took to clear them out, and nobody got arrested. They all left. They had their voice heard. The secretary agreed to go back on stage.
I love it.
So we're like, okay, because he's a busy person. He has other appointments, but he looked at his staff and said, "Do I have time? Sure, I'll go on stage if we have time." So we had an abbreviated conversation, but he was game, and he was absolutely unflappable the whole time.
That's why we have you on the show. You're doing amazing things. You're doing a lot of great things out here, and kudos to you for what you're doing out here.
Thank you.
So, I mean, like I said, you got session coming up. You're on TV once a week probably with WJZ, Peter, the secretary, Peter Buttigieg. That's awesome. So
I'm busy, man. The Banner's busy.
To go back to the question earlier statement you made, how does it feel? You talk about how your family would sit around and touch that paper. I think you know where I'm going with this. You touch that paper. Your friends will touch that paper. That rustling, that noise. Banner doesn't do paper.
I know.
How does? I'm not trying to get you caught up in trouble, but do you miss that? Because now so many things are digital, and I understand cost-wise, it makes more sense. But do you miss that rustling of that feel of that paper and seeing that? What are your thoughts on that?
I do miss the print paper, not gonna lie. I love the Banner. And when I was deciding to make the move from the Sun to the Banner, I thought, oh, I'm not going to be a newspaper reporter anymore. I'm a news reporter, but I'm not a newspaper reporter. Mm-hmm. And I actually just moved earlier this year, and I have boxes and boxes I saved every single paper and clipped out my stories from the time I was at the Diamondback at the University of Maryland. So literally probably 10 or 12 bankers boxes full of them. And I thought about just recycling them all, but I was like, no, I gotta keep this. So I have a closet in my home office full of boxes of print newspapers. I paid to move them because I just couldn't bear to part with them. I do love it. Print is going, it's going to be a thing of the past at some point. One thing that is nice is we don't have to worry about print deadlines. Right. Sometimes you get your paper in the morning, and this is not a knock on any newspaper, but it's, they had to finish it off at 8:00 the night before. Mm-hmm. That when I left the Sun, I don't know what it is now, but it was that was the drop dead of updating a story was 8 p.m. And sometimes, you don't get the late sports scores in your print paper because it has to go so early, and sometimes you have to rush to meet your print deadline. Well, at the Banner, when the story's ready, the story's ready. If it takes a little bit longer to get all the details, there's no print deadline bearing on you. So that's good. But I do miss the printed paper.
I had to because you said it, and I was like, let me bring it back. And
I am old school, and I do love a print newspaper. It's the first thing I do whenever I go on vacation. When I get a chance to hit the mini mart or whatever, grab a local newspaper and go through and see what's going on wherever we are.
It's funny because I keep at my parents' house all the articles I've had in paper, and it's in a Ziploc bag. Nice. But that's just stuff. I mean, it's funny when the Baltimore Sun thing when the guy was like, "You're buying all my papers," I'm like, "This is a commodity, man. This will never ever be in a paper again," and stuff like that. And the guy looked at me like, "Really?" I'm like, "You don't even know. This is a paper. Do you feel this it costs way too much for this? But I get it. But I'll pay for this, Yeah,
so. I mean, I have scrapbooks from when I was a kid. When I was in the paper, doing sports growing up, I was in the paper a few times, and in the Columbia Flyer, I was in the Baltimore Sun once. That was the best. See? When I got interviewed by the Baltimore Sun as a high schooler, that was the coolest thing.
You can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
So,
love a print paper.
What would you want people to walk away from this conversation? You and I have had. What do you want people to walk away? Just about you and what you got going on.
Yeah, I think some people generally don't understand what news reporters do, what journalists do, and that's on the fault of journalists. We don't necessarily explain really well what we do. You know, I'm trying to figure out the truth as best I can figure it out, dig up as many facts, hold our government officials accountable, and, you know, give our readers, you know, the people in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and beyond, you know, information that they need to, you know, make their own decisions, whether it's in an election or whether they think the governor's doing great or is full of crap. Like, they can decide for themselves. I'm just trying to give them all the information in hopefully like a readable way. And we're also not like, we're not like the people in the movies. We don't sleep with our sources.
You know, I wasn't going to say that. I wasn't going to say that. I mean, we see it on TV.
We don't meet people in dark parking lots, although I have had people more than you think actually slip me a manila envelope with something in it. But, you know, we're here. We're part of the community. We, at the Banner in particular, we've put a focus on community news and listening to our readers. And we want to give people what they need and what they want. And we are also super open to feedback. But most journalists, if you're a good journalist, you want to hear it, even if people are telling you off, or especially if people are pointing out a mistake. You want to hear it. We want to correct it. We want to do our best. And so I just hope people come away saying like, oh, she's a nice lady. Maybe I'll talk to the Banner.
Well, I appreciate you hanging out, being candid, but I'm not going to let you off that easy.
All right.
Can't let you off that easy. If you watch the show, folks, you know what time it is. It's the speed round.
All right.
So we're going to ask her a question because I purposely didn't want to ask her during the interview. Favorite United States women gymnast?
Well,
now, I gotta ask, who is your all-time? Who's your top three?
Oh, my top three.
I'll give you three.
Oh, I love so many. Okay, U.S. gymnast?
Yes,
okay.
U.S. gymnast.
Well, it has to be Simone Biles, of course. The greatest of all time.
Okay.
One of the greatest athletes of all time ever on the planet. She's amazing.
Facts.
Then I gotta go with Dominique Dawes.
Lyrical Maryland girl, right?
Marylander.
Okay, all
Marylander.
Right.
She's just like a year or two older than me, so I grew up like idolizing her.
Oh, okay.
Because gymnastics is a small world, and even, you know, at my level, everybody looked up to her because she was just, you know, the star, right? She went to 3 Olympics, multiple medals, including on the gold medal 1996 Atlanta team.
Okay.
And then my third favorite, or a third U.S. gymnast. Oh my gosh, it's like picking from like. You're asking a parent to pick their favorite children. Like,
Hey,
I love them all.
I had to hold off this last question.
I mean, I don't know. Suni Lee, Gabby Douglas, Shannon Miller. I don't know. It's so hard to pick. But
what is your favorite competition when they're in the Olympics? What's your favorite competition to watch?
like the favorite part of it to watch.
Do you like vault? Do you like the the rings? That's the men, but do you do uneven bars? Do you like the floor routine? Which one do you like the most?
Yeah, I'm a floor girly.
Okay.
I'm a floor exercise girl for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my favorite. It's my favorite to do. It's my favorite to watch. But I mean, I will watch any type of gymnastics. I watch the trampoline. I watch the rhythmic, like the other disciplines. Men's. I love men's gymnastics too. Yeah.
Got you. If we were hop in your car right now, what music would come on?
Oh, well, what would come on is actually probably radio, which would be news radio.
Okay, nothing wrong with that.
I'm a channel flipper between WBAL and WYPR. But
is there any music that gets you pumped up?
Yeah, well, when I need to get pumped up, Rage Against the Machine.
Okay, all right, I get
course.
that. I get that.
But I'm also a Dave Matthews Band fan.
Like Dave Matthews,
which I take my lumps for it. It's not like
Yellow and Blue CD. I get it. I'm all about the Dave Matthews.
Yeah,
been to a couple of concerts. Love them.
Concerts are great. Their concerts are amazing.
And then what if you do you eat chicken wings?
I sure do.
All right, flats or drums?
Flats, always
all right,
flats.
There we go. Blue cheese or ranch?
Blue cheese.
All right, there we go. All right, you're off the hook now.
I don't get the steamed crab question.
I didn't know if you wanted it. I didn't know. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, look at you. See, she watches the show.
I sure do.
All right, steamed crab. It's crabs. Sorry, crab cake or crabs? Steamed crabs.
Always steamed crabs.
Why is that?
I love the the social part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You're always having crabs with somebody you care about, like your friends, your family, your coworkers. It's a great bonding thing. We just restarted in my husband's family a tradition of doing a summer crab feast.
I love it.
And we just restarted it this year at my house. So
Love it.
Love steamed crabs.
And you know what? Your phone's on the ground. You're not going to pick it up.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not going to pick it up.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for coming to the show. It's been a great show. I learned so much, and I hope the listeners and viewers listening so much. If there's a tip person, how do they get a hold of you? How do they get a hold of you? There's a tip out there.
Yeah, you can hit me up on all the socials. I'm at pwoodreporter, or you can shoot me an email, pamela.wood@thebaltimorebanner.com, and you can find me at thebaltimorebanner.com.
Folks, you heard it here. Thank you so much, Miss Pamela Wood. Love,
Thanks,
peace.
Aaron.
We're out.
Never seen so many.